What's going on, guys? This is John here with the Fantasy Tap, ready to bring you our waiver wire pickups for Week 4. We just had an amazing Week 3, had a lot of crazy down-to-the-wire games, even the Lions putting it up against the Ravens, leaving the boy Justin Tucker to kick that record-breaking field goal to win the game. Now, injuries happen all over the board again. We've got a lot of players who have been given an opportunity to take a step up. Guys like CMC possibly hitting the IR. James White left the game, will not be returning. We had another receiver go down in KJ Hamler with a torn ACL. So going to have to make up for some lost roster spots, and this is the time to do it. Make sure you guys are subscribed and like the YouTube video as well as clicking the bell icon. That way you guys don't miss anything that we put out for you, and you're able to keep up and keep the best roster you guys can hold. So starting us off this weekend is someone that we were all really hyped for this season coming into it, but didn't really know what to expect. But that's going to be Taylor Heineke. The past 2 weeks since Ryan Fitzpatrick has been out, Heineke's been able to keep himself very, very fantasy relevant. With only playing half of a game in Week 1, he's still currently quarterback 14 on the season, having 2 consecutive games with 2 touchdowns in the air. Last week, finding one in the ground, running for 21 yards on 8 attempts. Heineke does find someone that will be able to fill in as a mid-range quarterback 2, possible quarterback 1 upside on the weeks. And then this week, he does have an incredible matchup going up against the Atlanta Falcons, which is everyone's favorite punching bag when it comes to fantasy. Another quarterback you guys might want to keep your eye on is actually going to be Sam Darnold. Surprisingly, quarterback 12 on the year. Incredible. And so far this season has had 3 20-plus point games, has thrown for nearly 300 yards each and every game, did not get any passing touchdowns in Week 3 against Houston, but was able to run the ball twice into the end zone and make up for those lost points. I think Sam Darnold, again, is someone that on easy matchups, you find yourself with that low-end quarterback 1 upside and a solid quarterback 2 floor. Now, he will be playing against Dallas this weekend, so who knows, could be another great shootout game. This is recorded before the Eagles-Dallas game, so I'm kind of a little waiting to see how they look against an offense that isn't fully explosive, and the Chargers are going up against Tampa. I want to see how porous Dallas's defense really is, but I do like the idea of rostering Sam Darnold as your quarterback 2 on your team, or if you've lost someone, if you've been playing Tua for some reason as your quarterback 1, you could put him in there too. Going on next is someone who's a lot more owned, but again, is someone who's just blowing our socks off, Derrick Carr. Currently quarterback 8, player overall 8.5 point PPR format, and he's been lighting it up each and every week so far. So far throwing 3 games, and each and every one of them for more than 380 yards and at least 2 touchdowns in both. Only 2 turnovers so far this season. And that's against some of the best defenses in the league, going up against Baltimore, Pittsburgh, and Miami already. They do play the Chargers this weekend, so again, we have another great opportunity for a lot of points to be coming from Derek Carr, especially with a guy like Darren Waller and some of these other young guys like Foster Moreau, we got Brian Edwards, Henry Ruggs, all being able and available for big plays. I do like Derek Carr as someone to hold for the rest of the season. This week, though, I'm thinking I'm playing him again in this divisional Chargers matchup. We're going to have to see what my other opportunities are, though. Someone that has been reminding us that he is a very, very consistent quarterback, Kirk Cousins. 3 weeks in a row of having spectacular numbers. So far this year, he's gotten 3 games with at least 2 touchdowns and 2 games with 3 touchdowns, 2 games at 300 yards, 1 eclipsing 350. Now, you're obviously looking at Kirk Cousins as a quarterback 2, currently quarterback 5 right now, playing games where the defenses weren't much to stop him. He was able to just light it up. Last week playing Seattle, the week before Arizona, and then starting the game off against a weak Cincinnati team that's already seemed to show some sort of turnaround. He will be playing against Detroit this week, and then, Cleveland this week, and then Detroit the following week. So he, again, is someone that you definitely need to be picking up and at least rostering him so someone else doesn't have him if he does break out. And if your quarterback goes down, it looks like Kirk Cousins is going to be extremely consistent, and I love him this year for the rest of the season. Possibly someone you can be looking to start in multiple weeks to finish out the year. Towards the end of the season, though, during your fantasy playoffs, he will have a Chicago and then an LA Rams matchup in Week 16, so keep an eye out for that. Now, going over to the running backs, though, with Christian McCaffrey possibly hitting IR, we do see Chuba Hubbard coming in, playing some 55% of the snaps up against in Houston, getting 11 carries for 52 yards and still getting some of that pass catching work. Now, a lot of people drafted him. He's very readily owned, only owned in 11.3% of leagues. Now, he's got more than likely going to be handed a majority of that CMC role like Mike Davis was last season. And so far, he's shown us enough to let me believe that he's someone that should be almost in your lineup every week if he's given that starting role as at least a flex option. Now, Giovanni Bernard out of Tampa Bay came into the year. Everyone's talking about how he's going to be that pass-catching back because Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones aren't really doing the work for him. Week 1 and 2, we kind of saw a little bit, but we didn't see a lot of it. Week 3, Tom Brady smacked us in the face and said, "This is why I brought this man here." 10 targets coming out of the backfield. Gio had an incredible day. He was able to find the end zone, so that is awesome. I would be grabbing him and just benching and sitting and waiting to see if this is a trend or if it's a one-game thing. I don't think that you're going to be able to see Gio put up double-digit points every week. He's not going to be a weekly flex start for you, but you may see opportunities if one of those other two running backs do go down, or even both with how injuries are going this season. Gio could have a great season to finish up for you and might even be someone to fill your roster. Another running back. Now, this one's only if Josh Jacobs is out. He's filled the role extremely well, and that's Peyton Barber. Has come in since the middle of week 2 when Josh Jacobs got banged up and played all of week 3 against the Miami Dolphins this week in a teeth and nail game that was going really close to the wire. Peyton Barber does fill that role exceptionally well. I personally wasn't someone that I thought would ever be talking about Peyton Barber this year, but averaging 4.8 yards per carry against the Dolphins this year and still going for over 100 yards and finding a touchdown. That's extreme efficiency. That is very, very great. And if you can get that on your team, going up against the Chargers or some other teams like maybe Denver in week 6, if Josh Jacobs misses any time, he's essentially at this point a very off-brand handcuff. He's not guaranteed the workload, but we see that he's going to get a majority of it, even though Kenyon Drake is still there. Now, finishing it up, James White obviously injured his hip, could be more than likely out for the remainder of the season. This leaves possibly either J.J. Taylor or Ramondre Stevenson to take up that second role behind Damian Harris as that pass-catching back for New England. This week, we did see Ramondre Stevenson not even play, be a healthy scratch, and let Brandon Bolden even get some work in there. But we see this all the time. The Patriots are extremely deep at running back, and what we saw throughout the preseason was that Ramondre Stevenson is an absolute baller. As soon as he gets some open space, he is someone that can and will take it to the house every chance he gets. He is someone that you are trying to pick up cheap, holding the roster spot for him, and just seeing what happens. He is not going in your lineup this week. It is a pure wait and see, be ahead of the curve kind of pickup. Now let's jump over to the wide receivers, and we're going to go a little quicker through them as there's a little bit more of them. Coming in, Sammy Watkins, 31.8% owned. Now, a lot of people watched the game and saw that Marquise Brown was getting an incredible amount of targets as well as racking up an incredible amount of drops. But what a lot of people didn't notice is that Sammy Watkins actually outsnapped Marquise Brown 46-39 throughout the game. Now, this means that Sammy Watkins is going to be available, and with those drops, we may see some confidence from Lamar dropping when passing to Marquise Brown, just like he was dropping those balls. Sammy Watkins could step into that role. Now, Rashad Bateman's still on IR, and until that happens, they are going to be looking to have some wide receiver that they can trust Lamar to throw to outside of Mark Andrews. So I do think that Sammy Watkins is someone that you might be able to use in a flex situation in some good matchups, or if we do see a hit to their receiver core. Talking about hits to receiver cores, though, let's talk about what's going on in Denver right now. As everyone knows, Jerry Jeudy is on IR for at least another week. Now, what happened to KJ Hamler, the guy that was drafted right next to him, is he tore his ACL. Mike is hurting. Mike loves KJ Hamler this year. He thinks he's got a lot of opportunity to be a big play guy for Teddy Bridgewater, and I agree there with him. But with him being out the rest of the season, the number 2 receiver right next to Courtland Sutton has to be Tim Patrick, and we've seen it every week so far this season. Tim Patrick, someone that filled in very, very well when Courtland Sutton was out last season, and does not get a lot of catches, but does use his big frame to get very big catches. The 20-yard chunk pass on third down that they can just throw it up to him, he'll get it. That 30-yard or that 15-yard touchdown into the red zone when he's covered by 2 short defenders he can jump up and grab it. And you've seen him just randomly get a short stat line, 4 catches, 50 yards, and a touchdown. But it almost happened somewhat regularly for him last season. So we're going to have to see if Teddy's using him in the same way that, Drew Lock was using him last year. But we'll have to see. I do like him as a roster hold and someone you might be able to throw in as a flex position owned at 14% right now. Another guy owned right there is actually Bryan Edwards, going back to the Raiders. He did lead the snap percentage of all the receivers for Las Vegas, leading 71%, next highest at 65%, who is Henry Ruggs. Now, Bryan Edwards was someone last year who started getting some hype, missed a lot of time due to injuries. And I do think that with how he's been playing, week one, I didn't want to give him a lot of credit for that because it seemed like the only chance he had was that deep play in the fourth quarter to help them win the game. Now, again, this week, he wasn't targeted and peppered with them, but he does get those chronic options of that deep ball coming to him randomly. Midway through the game, he gets at least 2 to 3 of them a game so far. And when they hit very, very well. Last week, his average yards per reception is 29.6. He's a big play guy, and he also catches the ball underneath and turns it into his own big play. I love Bryan Edwards, and I think once that offense gets some sort of, on a roll and starts melding together, I think we see Bryan Edwards and Darren Waller be those number 1 and 2 players for them. Now, going on, Emmanuel Sanders really shined this week, catching some big plays in the end zone for Josh Allen and looking like an absolute stud. 6 targets or more in all 3 games this year, and then 5 catches this week for 94 yards with those 2 touchdowns. Definitely someone you're going to want to be holding with the arm of Josh Allen slowly looking like it's warming back up and getting into gear. We're not seeing Stephon Diggs carry so much of the share of the offense. And Emmanuel Sanders could step in a very, very nice way as a flex receiver, giving you 10 points if he can get on a roll there and start catching some of the balls. We saw it this week, 94 yards on just 5 catches. Beautiful. Keep a lookout for him. He looks like to be that deep ball receiver there for Josh Allen. Up next, we got Anthony Miller making his debut for the Houston Texans this week. And he was actually surprisingly one of the leaders in snap percentage and the targets, getting 6 targets in his first showing, only falling behind Brandon Cooks last week. I think that Anthony Miller showed us when he was in the Bears a few years ago that he can be a very, very relevant guy, someone that can get in between defenders, find an open spot, and just happen to make a big play or two when he gets the opportunity. And so when you're playing with another group of players who aren't the best in the league, we need to remind ourselves the Texans are still an NFL team. They are extremely talented, much better at the sport than I can ever wish to be. But they're not the best out of the other 31 teams. So I do think that Anthony Miller as the number 2 receiver in Houston will make some big plays for him and actually possibly help Brandon Cooks find a little more space as he's not the only guy they can throw it to now. So grab Anthony Miller, throw him on the bench, see what happens here in week 2 against Buffalo. Might be a little janky, but you get to see what happens. He does finish out the season on an incredible stretch, which is something I really like. Weeks 14, 15, and 16, he's playing Seattle, Jacksonville, and the Chargers respectively, getting you right into those championship games on some good matchups. Now, DeAndre Hopkins did play this week, but was banged up, and it was pretty noticeable, especially if you're in the fantasy community, looking at his target share. He did still lead the snap percentage, but right behind him was A.J. Green and Christian Kirk. Rondale Moore did sustain a little bit of an injury during a part of the game, but Christian Kirk seemed to be the number 1 guy when DeAndre Hopkins was out there just getting the shadow coverage. Christian Kirk did have some big plays, going 8 targets, 7 catches for 104 yards at a 14.8 yards per reception. Juicy. I mean, get him on your team. So far this year, he is wide receiver 12 on the season, and has 2 games of over 12 points, 1 game cracking into those 20s. Going up against the Rams, San Francisco, and Cleveland the next few weeks with a Kyler Murray who is on absolute fire. Anytime, if you have him on your bench and we see Christian Kirk healthy, DeAndre Hopkins, A.J. Green, or Rondale Moore banged up in any way, shape, or form, I think it might be a good flag to look at Christian Kirk and say, this might be the week we flex him in. I do think he's someone you're going to want to roster. And if he's not readily available for you, Kirk's currently owned 22.4%. I do think that A.J. Green might be someone else who can have some big days, especially if Rondale Moore is surprisingly banged up more than he put on this season. Last week, 3 weeks in a row now, we've seen A.J. Green get 6 targets, this time catching 5 of them, going for those 112 yards, and putting up some studly numbers without needing that touchdown dependency. And that's what we really love to see, those big plays, no touchdowns, but still a great fantasy day. I think A.J. Green does have an opportunity to continue to be that flex option. Mike was all over him this offseason, and I couldn't see it, but I think I'm starting to. So make sure you guys are going out there and grabbing him. I'm not spending a huge amount of my budget on him. I know I haven't really talked about Fab on the other guys going through here. Realistically, there's not many other than the quarterbacks I'm willing to spend more than 10% on, other than Chuba Hubbard. If I'm running back needy, I'd spend up to 25% on him. All the receivers, I'm 8 to 5% on my Fab budget. Not trying to overspend, as a lot of these guys are shots in the dark still. No one really walking into a guaranteed situation. Someone I would be spending up more for going into the tight ends is actually going to be Mike Gesicki. We've been very, very hesitant to play Mike Gesicki outside after what happened in week 1. And then week 2 just made it that much worse. Now that Jacoby Brissett's taken over, though, it looks like it's the Jalen Waddle, Mike Gesicki show, and I can't be any happier. At 12 targets this week, 10 catches and 86 yards. Again, no touchdowns. It's fine. Guy still put up 13 points. Beautiful day for a tight end. If you can get 13.5 points without a touchdown, you are not looking at a touchdown-dependent tight end. You're looking at someone you can start every week, and when you get those touchdowns, you get it. That's beautiful. You've got that security blanket. You've got that high floor. Now you get that beautiful ceiling that might push you into the category of winning your week without needing someone else to pop off on your team. More of a floor pick, though. Tyler Conklin balled out this week. Did go up against Seattle, who was going to be very porous for him, but was targeted 8 times for 70 yards, 7 catches, and then that 1 touchdown. So he is not going to be someone that you can guarantee has a solid floor. He has been getting about 4 targets per game, about 2 to 4 catches per game. So it's almost there. If you're in a deep league with deep benches and you have no tight end options, he's someone you can look at. Streaming option at best, but this week against Cleveland might be a little rough. Look for him a little later on. If you have the bench space, grab him and see how he does against Cleveland. You're looking for about 4 more targets. And then you can play him against Detroit in week 5, Carolina the week after that, and then possibly up against Dallas in week 8. Another tight end who seems to be taking a step forward is going to be Pat Freiermuth. Najee Harris did his best this week, ran the ball from the 50 on a few runs and got it all the way down to about the 3 or 4 yard line. And then Tomlin said, you know what, let's give the rookie a touchdown. So they threw it to Pat Freiermuth. He was targeted 5 times in the game, which is more than Eric Ebron. He did catch the ball 3 times, which is more than Eric Ebron. And he looked a lot better than Eric Ebron. It seems that each week he's getting more and more of a chunk of that offense. And I think we're going to start seeing him being used a lot more, especially if Deontay Johnson continues to miss time. And now Juju Smith-Schuster's at risk of missing time with his banged up rib injury. Pat Freiermuth could be taking that step forward as that early rookie tight end breakout. And then next up, and finally, we've got another tight end who's a floor play. Just, I can stream and get by with him. If he gets a touchdown, then awesome. That's going to be Dawson Knox. So far for Buffalo, he's been getting 4 targets per game on average, and then getting about 4 catches too. 50 yards for him is a normal day, and the past 2 weeks he's found himself into the end zone. I'm not excited to go out and play this guy, but I am looking at him if I'm streaming tight ends. It is a little bit early. We're not hitting bye weeks yet, but just keep your eye out. If he continues to perform, he's someone that could have a nice solid floor for you with not expecting much of a ceiling. So, guys, that is all the waiver wire pickups for week 4. If I missed anyone or you guys have any questions on anyone, make sure to get those questions into the comments below to our Twitter or Instagram at the Fantasy Tap, or in our Discord chat, which I will link down in the video description below, which is a great place for you guys to join. So make sure you guys go and do that. If I missed anyone, let me know. We'll talk about them. I'll give you my honest opinion in whatever format you reach out to us. Mike will jump in and give it to you too. We're going to make sure you guys have the best rosters going into week 4, ready to get that dub. Hopefully a lot of you are 3-0 right now, ready to get that 4-0 lead. Thank you so much for joining me in this episode. I'll see you guys next time.